Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing Fallout, the board game by Fantasy Flight Games. Let's check it out. Okay guys, I just wanted you to see that this is the basic setup for the game. Now this is rearranged differently to show the camera a bit better, because otherwise it's kind of a wider shot and I want it to be a little bit of a longer shot so I can show you the components easier. But you could rearrange this however you want. So like here's kind of the shop area. These are items you get from special quests. This is loot. These are perks. These are level up, special tokens. These are the quests you'd use and the components. These are future quests you'd have to get these later. I'll explain all of this in more detail. Agenda cards, the scenario, the map with the enemies and the survivors, and then your unit cards, your dice, and a whole bunch of bottle caps which are used for currency. So now that that's kind of all laid out and you kind of have an idea of everything involved in the game, how heavy of a game on the table this is, let's actually dive into the actual pieces. Okay, I'm going to start with the scenarios, and as to not spoil anything, I'm going to start with the scenario it suggests that you start the game with. In this case, it is the Commonwealth. Now each scenario card has a front and a back. The back shows you the map that you should place the tiles in. The green and red tiles are all randomized, so you only see the back, and as you explore, you'll uncover them. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but to suffice it to say, green is easier than orange. You always start at Crossroad Camp, no matter what scenario it is, and then everything else is randomized except for the 3 here that you show where it is. At the top, it will show the setup, and that involves what quest to stage, in this case quest 14, and it tells you where to place any special tokens. In this case, a shield should be in Diamond City. So Diamond City is right there, and it should have a shield. So we'll show you those tokens in a little bit. On the other side, you will find information about both factions. There are always 2 factions in each scenario. Each one is represented with a star or a shield. So it'll tell you a little bit about each one and what tokens on the map will be. So if you recall, this one said that there needed to be a shield, in this case a synth, on Diamond City. So you would place a shield token and it would be represented by this. Now you'll notice that there is an X and a Y here. Those are variable based off of this track here. So depending on where each faction token is, the values will change from X and what Y. And this will be in different locations. Here it is their health, and here it is a special ability of some kind that will be determined on here. And there's a little bit about each faction, and sometimes there are some rules, but not in this one because this is your first one. But sometimes different things will happen depending on which faction is activated. Along with scenarios, you have quest cards. As you recall, this required you stage 14. Stage means that the quest is in play for anybody to complete. This is number 14, you can tell by here. When searching for a quest, you're going to search through these big, long decks that are numbered greatly, right? There's, I think, 184. There's a lot, 170-ish, thereabout. So there's plenty of variability here. And what you'll do is you'll always read the italicized kind of story element, and then your different options. Now, if it's a stage quest, it's face up and anybody can use it, so you can read the entire thing. So in this case, you can either do number 1 or number 2. It'll say what you need to do. In this case, you need to kill an enemy, or you need to go and spend an action in Diamond City. And then different things will happen. So if you kill one of these special enemies, you get 2 loot cards, and then you stage 2 more quests. So now 2 quests pop up from that, and then you discard this card, so it's not used again. If you go to Diamond City and use a quest, you'll also get 2 loot, but you'll stage 2 different quests here. Then you'll add another quest that goes into a random pile, which I'll go to later, an encounter deck, and then you make sure to trash this as well. And notice that different factions increase down that track list depending on what you do. So maybe you want the star faction to increase, or maybe you want the shield action to increase. It depends on which one you choose. Additionally, quests are one of the only ways that you can get agenda cards. Agenda cards are how you get influence. We'll go into that in more detail, but just keep that in mind. Lastly, some quests require a quest tracker to be put onto the quest icon, and then a second tracker will be put somewhere on the map that shows either a location or represents something else that the quest needs. So you'll get 2 matching colors, and you can have several of these open at once, depending on the scenario. Okay, now let's get into kind of the basic gameplay. Now this is a high-level overview, mind you, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. There are other YouTube channels that do much better and more in-depth how-to-plays. What I'm trying to do here is give you a sense of how the game flows so you can decide whether or not this seems like a game that you might like or not. Additionally, you're going to see some miniatures here. I will go into more detail with that because that is one of my specialties. So on any given turn, you get 2 actions. For your turn, you can move, where you gain 2 movement points. Each movement point is used to move from one white space to the next. You can encounter. Encounter is where you draw a card depending on the symbol on the map. That I will get into a little bit here. You can choose to fight. You can either fight something adjacent to you or something in your same zone. It depends on if you have a ranged weapon or not. There are also some perks like the sniper rifle that allow you to shoot very far off. You can also do an explore action. Explore action is where you flip one of these tiles. We're going to show that in just a moment. You can also do a quest action. As you saw, there was an option where you could go to Diamond City and spend an action to quest there. You can also camp. Camping heals your it heals your health by 3. It does not cure radiation. You can then trade. You can unexhaust cards. There are some cards that you can only use once and then they're exhausted and then you have to camp to use them again. And a few other things as well. So let's get into the explore action here. So if you are adjacent, you can explore. So the Vault Dweller here can only explore this harder area, whereas the Wastelander here can explore either one because her space matches either one. So let's say we're going to explore the easier green area first. So that is flipped over, and once it's flipped over, the arrow always matches. This helps keep it aligned and makes everything look smooth. You can form rivers and all sorts of stuff that'll be different each time. You'll see there are 2 symbols here. So this is a monster symbol. So you'll have the accompanying kind of monster, in this case a critter, and it will be placed face up. In this case it is a rad scorpion. Now the rad scorpion can only be hit in the legs and arms. He needs 1 hit and he will flee if he's not defeated, and he is aggressive. So the moment you get inside of him or you are in the same space as him, you will fight. Now those VAT icons you might recognize from the game are from the dice. So let's go ahead and bring those in. So these are the dice. As you can see, each space has a highlight on it. That depends on if you got a hit or not. You can only hurt an enemy if it matches its symbol. Additionally, these bands here, these little bursts, are the damage it deals back. Additionally, if you're doing a test like rolling and trying to test your intelligence or something like that, you need to roll these different BAM icons. If you do defeat him, you get XP equal to the amount of health, in this case 1. And then he is removed, and another face-down, inactive enemy is put in the closest spot that is free. In this case, it would be the one right there. Now, the reason that's the case is because they could move farther away, and then in which case it wouldn't be right there. If they're reactivated, then this is flipped up. In this case, there is a mole rat, and the cycle repeats. Now, if you were to explore this more dangerous area, again, the arrow would flip up, and they would kind of align. And as you can see, a much more dangerous enemy looks to be coming. In this case, it is a Deathclaw, which is not good. He can only get hurt in his arms, and he has 3. So all 3 of your dice need to hit the arms somehow. Additionally, if you kill him, you'll get a loot icon, and he is also aggressive, but he will not flee. So that's kind of the basics of combat. I might go a little bit more into detail with that, but suffice it to say you can do rerolls depending on your special and your player board. There are also these symbols here. These are towns. So if you were to be here, let's say, in Piddleton Estate, you could then encounter. Encounter is another one of your actions, and you have a deck of cards that have that symbol in there. And you would flip one over and you might be able to shop or do something else. I'm not going to show you the details there, but you read it just like a quest card, except you have somebody else read it to you. So they're going to read the italic kind of story bit, and then give you some options. And then you choose the options not knowing what the outcome could be. And then whatever happens, happens. You could try something and fail. You could try something and it didn't turn out the way it was, or it was a trap, or there's all sorts of things, or something could happen. It all depends. Something will be different. Rarely are you just going to go shop and then just simply shop. This game is very story-driven in that regard. Alright, let's go into the player boards a little bit. I will start by saying I do not like these player boards. I like the design, I don't like the functionality of them. They are made of 2 pieces of cardboard that if you saw my unboxing video, I actually put one together live. And I even struggled to do that, so they're pinned kind of in here. And then you have these pegs. These pegs you're pulling out and putting in, which means that eventually this will rough out. Right, this is just cardboard, and these are pegs you're mashing in and taking out. And that's really unfortunate. I would have much rather have had a plastic one, or magnets, or there are many other options you can do. The kind of plastic turntable number things. There's a lot of options here, and I don't think pegs and cardboard is the answer for longevity. So do be aware of that you will kind of be stuck using this. Now, you have your XP, you have your special, you have different slots you can have, so you can be villainous, or you can be idolized, or you can be well rested, or you can be a ghoul or a super mutant, or maybe you're addicted, in which case you have a lock so you can't get rid of that except for a special action. You have your XP. How XP works is you jump to your special one. So the first level will take 2. You will jump from here to below the A, and you'll loop back to this. It takes 2 XP to level up. You will then draw 2 random special tokens. You don't know what they are. When you flip them over, you will pick one. In this case, I got 2 eyes, so I'm going to place an eye. So now next time I level up, it will take 1, 2, 3 to level up, so on and so forth. If I drew an eye again, I would be able to pick a perk card. The perk cards are very cool. You can only pick a perk that goes with the one you had. So in this case, it would be an eye. So I'd have to find one with an eye. Should have these in order. Yeah, so I could be a gun nut or a swift learner, and they have special one-time actions. You will have to discard the card, but they are very good. For instance, the swift learner, you can discard it when you level up and keep both tokens you got. If there are both repeats, you get 2 perks from that, so that's very cool. That's awesome. That's very interesting. The other, and one of my favorite parts of this game, is the green is your radiation and the red is your health. How this game works is you will get radiation and you will lose health. And you recover them separately in different ways. If for any reason your health would be on the same slot or farther left than your radiation, you die. What that means is you keep your equipment, you discard your inventory, and you go back to the starting area. You keep your XP and everything else. So it is kind of a bummer, but really what that means is you can get radiation free, but that's that much less health that you can have. So if you have 10 radiation, you can only lose 6 HP before you die. So you really need to keep track of that. The ghoul works differently, and he is essentially inverted. He gets health through radiation, but he starts at a lower health, which has its pros and cons that I'll talk about towards the end. You also start with 3 bottle caps. Bottle caps are your currency. You can spend more. You have your agenda icon. This is secret to you, though you can trade it. You can do whatever you want with it. And it kind of tells you how you win. So you need different influence depending on how many players are playing to win. Now, some of them are kind of interesting, like you have this one here that is the know-it-all. So you get 1 influence no matter what. That's the big thumbs up. Plus, you get a second one if there is exactly 1 unexplored tile, or you get +2 for a total of 3 if there was 0 unexplored tiles. So your objective there is to explore all the tiles. You get 3 influence. Here's another one that's kind of interesting, a people person. So if you're idolized, you get 2. If you have 3 or more companions, you get 3. Okay, so that's 6 if you did both of those. The vast majority, I think 17 of 22, something like that, is this. You either have 1 for the shields or 1 for the stars, and the whole objective is to progress the main quest system in one faction so that they have a big lead. Because as you can see, you get 1 for each track. There are a total of 6 spaces different, and therefore you can get, if you had 2 of these, 12 influence just by this. So completed 2 complete is 6 versus 12. So a big difference there. That's really how you win. And unfortunately, that is the majority of them. So there's another one. There's another one. Look, there's another one and another one. So the majority of them are that, and that's really unfortunate. I really don't like that. I wish that was a little different. Now you'll see here the Wastelander, going back to this, starts with the tire iron. You'll see this S here. What that means is if she had the S special and she was attacking, she would be allowed to re-roll some or all of the dice, however many she wanted. So that's how you get those like 3 hits on the arms. Maybe you rolled one arm and then you re-roll the other 2 and they both land and then you're good. So you can have multiple symbols here, and that is involved in all testing. So it is important to kind of fill this out for that reason alone. Additionally, you have a spot to where equipment have companions in your inventory. So let's go ahead and go to the loot here. As I mentioned, you could loot, and if you do, you can just loot bottle caps. This says discard it, gain some bottle caps. All right, you found some bottle caps. That's exciting. You could get something like a piece of armor, so that's fun. And this one, it normally has a number here, but this one is variable depending on what's going on. And each one has a sell value. So to equip that, you would have to put it here. You can only have 1 armor equipped. You can get loot like, hey, I found a companion, and you can equip her here. Otherwise, you go in your inventory, you're limited to 3 in your inventory. Otherwise, you have to discard. And that's it for your player board. That's everything that's going to be going on around your player board, except for the fact that if you do have a faction card, you can flip it over, and then that faction will not attack you. Okay, lastly, there is the shop. The shop starts with 4, and then when you visit a shop, you get a 5th card. So those are your options. Those are always visible and they're always there. The reason you add one is because there can only be 4. So at the end, if nothing's bought, 1 falls off. So that's how the inventory is refreshed, but that's quite slow. I'll talk about that again towards the end. But as you can see, there are a wide variety of costs and different things. Here's one of the few ways you can get rid of radiations with the RadAway. But you also have items and weapons and health items and armor and all sorts of other things. Additionally, there are these special quest-related loot that you get to pick a specific item from. There's a lot here. They're all very cool and very neat, and it kind of tells you like, hey, you know, pick this out, and you go and you look through it and you pick out the one that you actually get. They're all normally very good items, but there's a wide variety of different ones in there. Alright, and lastly we have the miniatures. So I have 3 here. I have another 2 that I've painted, so I'll show those afterwards. But as you can see, Fantasy Flight is doing a great job on their miniatures. These miniatures are actually really well detailed. As you can see, there's minimal flash. I haven't trimmed him or anything, so what you see is what you get in this regard. So as you can see, very minimal flash to the point where you could probably get away with not trimming any of it, but there won't be much to trim anyway. But they're all quite unique in different poses, so you can very well tell, even unpainted, who is who. Right, so that's, again, very, very cool. Now, when it comes to painting them, they paint up very well. So here is my Brotherhood Outcast mini, and as you can see, he is fully painted. And, I mean, again, the detail is all there. I think he looks very cool, very neat. Here is my ghoul. This one I haven't even posted yet, so here's a little sneak peek for you guys. If you're watching this as I release it, if you're watching it afterwards, you can probably go check the video. I'll go and link to that in the description so you can see that. But there's the ghoul, as you can see, also very easy to paint. They're quick, they're well detailed, and all around very good minis. Okay, so after playing with 4 players, with 2 players, and solo, let me break this down into what I like and what I don't like. Starting with what I don't like. The first major issue I have with this game is actually what I have with a lot of Fantasy Flight games, and that's their packaging. See, Fantasy Flight games makes amazing components for their games. Their miniatures have grown leaps and bounds, and they are now one of the leaders when it comes to miniatures and board games. I think they do great miniatures when it comes to sculpt design and quality. However, they're still packaging it in a bag like this. This is not how you store miniatures. This is not how you give miniatures to your customers, and it's not the solution you give them to store it. This means we have to go to alternative routes instead of being able to put it in a plastic tray, or maybe something closer to like what Days of Wonder does with like Small World or something like that, where you just have little spots, and instead of cardboard, it would be, you know, for the miniatures. I don't know. There are plenty of better options, I feel, than just putting everything in baggies. That's too much. And additionally, this box here is too big. It does not need to be that big. Now, the box is fine, and it's standard, but it's one of those games that does give the illusion that there's more in the box than there is. That being said, there's plenty in the box. It's not a gripe per se. It's just showing that they have room to work with. See, the box is one of those boxes that have the cardboard that like bumps up and creates like a little rivet where everything goes in, and the rest is just air. It's just space with cardboard there to prevent everything from jostling around, more than the fact that they're in bags and are going to jostle around anyway. And you wouldn't have to worry about that if you had proper storage solutions in the box. So that's my first major gripe. It's not as minor a complaint as I feel it is, mainly because I feel you should present the game the way you feel it should be stored, or at least to like a bare minimum. And if your bare minimum is plastic baggies for everything, then what does that tell me as a customer? So that's the first major gripe. Now, onto the game itself. There are almost a plethora of cons here. Now, there are some strong pros, so stay for that, and bear with me here while I kind of nitpick at this game. But the game is inherently flawed when it comes to its winning condition. You see, influence just does not work. It's too lopsided. First of all, it's random. If you recall when I did the component breakdown, I said the vast majority, 2/3 or more, of the influence cards are based off of a faction progressing. Now, first of all, in different scenarios, not every faction is as easy to progress. For instance, you can get stuck. There was a time where I was playing with my wife, and we were playing 2-player, and we both had agenda cards to where we wanted to progress one of the factions. The only way to do that on the very first quest was to have a companion. The other one, you just had to use a test to roll for 3 or higher, and you could use 2 different things to re-roll. So that was easier, but neither of us had a companion, and neither of us were able to get a companion for over an hour. What that means is nothing really happened. We kind of stalled. We were able to do a few more things and all that, but we ended up exploring more and more of the tile, just trying to do encounters, trying to get more things to happen, and failing over and over again. There was one in the shop, but we needed an intelligence icon, which neither of us had in our special, and leveling up, I would get a C and an A, or an S and an L, but we didn't get an I, so we couldn't even get the companion in the shop that was there the entire time. Because the shop, another issue, the shop does not change enough. If you see the 4 items there, and you don't want any of them, or you can have them, you're not going to go shopping. And the only way to change the shop icon, the shop items to buy, is to go shopping. So you essentially have to waste a turn to draw that extra card to move 1 card out. And if you're towards the start, you can only buy or sell 1 thing anyway. So if you sell 1 thing, that didn't move it at all. You actually have to buy something, which you only start with 3 caps, which are typically not enough. So you can get in these situations where you're kind of bogged down with having to progress the quest, and that being really the only way to score. Because if you need 9, 10, 11 different influence, you need those big scores. You cannot win off of just the other ones where you explore tiles or get companions or become, respected or vilified or, level up your special or all those others. They just don't give enough, especially in single player. I'm not sure you can get 11 influence without a faction token. And you can only have 4 agenda cards at a time. So the 4 have to count. If none of them are agendas or are faction based, you probably can't do it. Now, you can also be screwed over from the start. If you're playing against other people and let's say you're playing 4 players, and all 3 of them get the same faction card to increase the shields, whatever that faction is, and you get the faction card to increase the stars. At that point, 3 people, whether they know it or not, are going to be working together towards that goal, and you're going to be working towards the other goal. I'll let you imagine which one is going to happen. I'll give you a hint. It's not the star. It's probably not going to be the star, right? Not if they're playing the game like they should be. And so, from the get-go, you can kind of be screwed over. Additionally, not every scenario is built with all the characters in mind, per se. What I mean by that is, the ghoul is typically one of the worst characters to have, because you have less health. And if a monster is at equal distance between 2 people, it'll pick the person with the least amount of health, which is almost always going to be you, right? Because if other people are damaged, you typically are as well. And so they're going to just come after you over and over and over again. And there's not really a lot of benefit. You can avoid radiation easily enough to not be, worried about that. Now,
There is one, I'm not even going to say which one, but there is a scenario where there's a lot of radiation, in which case now you have this way large advantage. You can just walk around and not be hurt at all. In fact, you're healing, whereas everybody else is struggling with the radiation. And so if you're a wastelander or a vault dweller, you're just kind of at a disadvantage just by the character you picked, because they're not balanced in that sense. So that's kind of unfortunate. Also, single player is really fun. And I actually really enjoyed my time playing it. It went by really fast. Almost too fast, it felt. I could probably have just goofed around a little bit because I knew how to win, and I knew if I just completed this quest, I'd win, and that was it. And so I could have avoided that and just kept going, much like you do in the game half the time. You get towards the end and then do all the side quests. And you could totally do that. But some of the cards don't make sense. So there are like some companions that allow you to like trade with other players or do something like that. And if you're playing by yourself, those cards are now useless. In fact, I house ruled on the spot when I got one that I'm just going to redraw and throw that card out. That I'm not even going to have that count because it literally doesn't make any sense. It's completely useless. And so there's some oddities there as well. Now, let's go on and move to things I like. Now, one of the things I was worried about, but I actually ended up liking, I was worried that because all the quests or stage can be completed, I could talk to somebody. Let's say I'm talking to Sally, and Sally says, hey, these raiders are picking on me. This is a made-up scenario, so, I mean, maybe. I haven't seen them all. Maybe Sally is being picked on by raiders, but let's say I talk to her. She says, here's the quest location. Go to that. Somebody else that didn't even talk to her can now complete that part of the quest. Now, that doesn't necessarily make sense, right? Thematically, they shouldn't know about that or anything, right? It doesn't make sense. They would have to talk to Sally first. Or, as an example, and there's plenty of that. But in practice, it doesn't bother me. I'm actually totally fine with that. We all are following the same story, even though my mini isn't there. It didn't even really come up. I thought about that before I even opened the box. When I was first looking into this game, I was worried, that doesn't quite make sense, but it worked out fine. I'm not bothered by that. And in fact, the fact that I'm talking to Sally and then going over to this quest location, and once I get there, something happens and it's added to an encounter, and later on I find her long-lost sister and then her puppy or whatever. It is very cool. That story-driven works fantastically. It works really well, and it's very, very fun to go through there because the theme is completely there. And that's another highlight, is this is Fallout, the board game. Period. This is, if you took Fallout and you made it as close as you could in a board game and still make the board game pretty much make sense, it's here. In fact, if you took out the agenda cards, if you made it to where the agenda cards were not faction-based at all, then that would work. Because there's actually one other thing I don't like, and that's the fact that if you get the influence, you can say, I got more influence than the factions, therefore I win. And it breaks the story. It stops the story. Even when I was playing solo and I was playing through and I knew if I did this quest, that was not the last quest in the story. There was one more quest. And so it literally says, stage another quest, and I staged it. But before I read it, I then was like, okay, but I won. And I didn't read it, which means I don't know how that story ends. I've played that scenario, and in fact, the only way you're going to find that is if you either keep going or something odd happens to where, like, there's some flip-flopping and, maybe it just so happened that the people are even when it comes to that, or you purposely play it that way. And so if you took out the faction agenda cards and just made it to where exploring tiles and killing monsters and completing other quests did it, and you just played it to the story's end, and then at the end found out who did it, I would probably enjoy that more. And in fact, if you were to house rule this, and I'm saying house rule a lot, and I know that's a dirty word for the vast majority of you, it is for me. I've never done it before. I'm typically very against that. However, the foundation is here. Everything you wanted for a Fallout game is here. You just kind of have to play it how you want. And so with that breaking of the agenda cards, which is the only way to win, with that being inherently disadvantaged, and you can, from the get-go, have almost no way to win. And as luck goes, it doesn't matter if you were the best player, you didn't get the right cards, period. So you can't play this competitively. Therefore, my suggestion is to just play it for fun. Don't try to necessarily win. Play what you'd want to do. If you get a card that says follow the slavers, and you're like, I don't want to follow the slavers, I want to play a good character. Play a good character. Follow the slaves. Even if you lose, it doesn't matter. You'll have more fun that way. Follow that other faction. That's what I would highly suggest doing. And In fact, I've thought about just getting rid of agenda cards entirely. I almost want to play, and maybe I will. If I do, I'll note this later on. I'll add an amendum either as a quick follow-up video or a description or whatever, and just play without that at all, and just play through the story and have fun. Because really, this game does fantastic with that. It's great with that. I mean, everything from the manuals to the miniatures to the board games to the perk cards, it all exudes Fallout. And if you're a fan of the video game series at all, you will geek over this game very, very easily. So anyway, guys, that's my review. I hope that helps you make an informed decision on whether or not you think this is a good game for your gaming group, with that competitive part in mind and the thematic elements in mind and the component qualities in mind and all that sort of thing. I plan on continuing to play this game. I love Fallout, the video game, and I get a big kick out of this. I enjoy the miniatures. I'm enjoying painting them, and there's only 5, which, you know, I want a whole bunch more, but it's also kind of nice to just have a completed painted set where you can sit down and I have this painted and they all look great and they match and everything's just a lot of fun, especially if you get the right group of people in there. So anyway, that's my review. I hope you liked it. If you made it through this far and you did enjoy it, please click that thumbs up button. I really always appreciate it. Leave me in the comments below what you thought of Fallout, or if you have any further questions, hopefully I can answer them or somebody else from the community can. Let's discuss it down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions on this, because I feel like this might be a bit of a divisive game here, because a lot of people are going to really want to like it, but it does have a lot of flaws as well. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't yet. I will be continuing to paint the miniatures. I already have the Brotherhood Outcast painted, so I'm going to link to that below, along with the Ghoul and future ones as well. So keep on the lookout for that. Subscribe if you want to see more. Check me out on Patreon for some behind-the-scenes pictures and posts. You can vote there on future miniatures. There's a more personalized chat. There's a lot of things there that you can look for. So check that out for only $1 a month. That's $12 a year. But regardless of what you choose, so whether it's a thumbs up, a subscription, a comment, Patreon, or nothing at all, thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this informative. I hope you found it entertaining or educational or anything like that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again next time.